I would like to call, get this closer to me. I would like to call today's meeting to order. It is 9 o'clock. If you would all rise for a moment of silence and invocation.
Thank you, Lord, for the opportunity to gather here with our citizens, our commissioners, administration, in an effort to solve some of the many, many problems that we endure. Please watch over everyone and guide us in those decisions. Keep everyone safe on their return trips home today. Thank you, Lord. Amen.
Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. Clerk Palmer, if you would call the roll.
Campbell.
Here.
Connor.
Here.
Geiger absent. Getty.
Here.
Gibson.
Here.
Jackson.
Here.
Smoker.
Here.
Thank you. Approval of the written agenda. Is there anything that the commissioners would like changed on the agenda or added?
Madam Chair, I would like to move from consent item C down to items for consideration.
Okay, and we will put that after, that will be number B on that. Items for consideration. Is there anything else, anyone? Any commissioner?
No.
Public? B is in baby? Okay. And that will be after, so that will be the new C under items for consideration. There isn't anything else. Could I have a motion to present the agenda as amended? To approve the agenda as amended?
Support.
Motion by Smoker, seconded by Gibson, to approve the agenda as amended. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, the same? Motion passes. Reports from state and county officers. We have none. Limited public comment. Okay, 3 minutes per person.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I wish to remind members and guests to please speak into the microphone, Vivian.
I'm sorry. I'm sitting at Ben's desk. I must be too small. I can't reach that.
Enjoy your quiet, breathy voice. But we need to hear you. And a little humor always helps in these trying times when we're all frustrated and stuff. But please, you've come a long way to share your knowledge, and I wish to hear what you have to say. So thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. And yes, I am Rick Moore, and I approve this message.
Thank you. More public comment? Who's next? All right, moving on. I thought somebody was getting, oh, okay.
Thanks for your message, Rick. Good morning, commissioners. Last week, this body approved fiscal year 2023-2025 Region 3B Area Agency on Aging multi-year plan. To Vice Chair Connor's credit, members in the audience were given the opportunity to speak against that plan, and I thank you. I want to know that we did not speak against the plan as a whole, just inclusion requiring DEI training for COA employees. Do any of you support DEI training? The assumption was the denial of this plan would lead to not receiving funds for the Meals on Wheels program, which was never specifically determined in direct questioning of Ms. Wise. Although there seemed to be some deceit to the answer given by Commissioner Jackson, who attempted to get to the root of plan approval, and I appreciate that. Had it been connected to the Meals on Wheels program, I still question why we socialization, senior citizen activities. These are the 5 greatest needs of our seniors. Granted, those things are each fairly faulty in their measurement, but I believe this would be a truthful statement for our seniors here in Berry County. Additionally, as I reviewed the remainder of Ms. Lyons' presentation, I found no requirement that meant that we needed to adopt DEI training at the COA, nor have I found it as a core target issue with our staff. I was able to answer my concerns with this presentation based off of slide 17. In the presentation, simply put, there wasn't an actual need for the training of COA employees. Instead, it was about aligning goals with the state. Have we not seen enough of what state alignment over the past 4 years can do to our communities? The solution, is to encourage you to pull the plan that you've done from the agenda, ask Ms. Lyons to return, and vote to only approve a plan that is cleansed of political filth like CRT and BEI. I would ask that you be bold enough to at least gather more information. Thank you for your time. By the way, my name is Brandon Strong from East Shot Township. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good morning, Joel Livison, Rutland Township. Microphone's working nice today, so. I'm just gonna keep this short and sweet for right now. We are holding at the Waldorf on Thursday at 7 p.m. a candidates forum, state level and up, and we are starting at 7 o'clock, and which we've invited the majority of candidates to be there. We encourage everyone to show up. It'll be your chance to ask them questions on the record and be able to interact with them before you vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Joel.
Bethany Matthews from Carlton Township, and I second what Brandon Strong said.
Thank you. Anybody else? I'm working here with this clock. I'm not ignoring anybody. I'm just trying to make sure this thing works. Anybody else? Okay. Excuse me, I'm gonna take a pause here for a second. Sheriff Leaf, did you have a report to share with us? I know you walked in just as we moved on to the next item. Okay, thank you. Various correspondence. Commissioners, does anyone have any various correspondence? All right, moving on. Consent items.
I move to approve the July 12th, 2022 Board of Commissioner meeting minutes. And letter D, approval to appoint David Chinavar as officer delegate and Vivian Connor as officer alternate to attend the 2022 Municipal Employees Retirement System annual meeting, and to approve paying the expenses for the officer delegate and the employee delegate to attend on September 26th and 27th, 2022 at the Grand Traverse Resort in Acme, Michigan. Letter E, approval of replacement of county clerk workstations by Interface Interiors in the amount of $16,395.87, with funds to be paid from the Capital Replacement Fund. Letter F, approval to replace a vacant full-time kennel worker position with a second full-time animal shelter technician position, with funds to be transferred from the Animal Shelter Donation Fund to the General Fund for the additional cost in budget year 2022. Letter G, approval of the recommendation by the Berry County Commission on Aging Board to hire Courtney Zinni as the Commission on Aging Executive Director as recommended by the Commission on Aging Board.
Second, Gibson.
We have a motion by Getty, seconded by Gibson, to approve the July 12th, 2022 Board of Commissioner meeting minutes, to appoint David Chinavar as officer delegate and Vivian Connor as officer alternate to attend the 2022 Municipal Employees Retirement System annual meeting, and to approve paying the expenses for the officer delegate and the employee delegate to attend on September 26th through the 27th, 2022 at the Grand Traverse Resort in Acme, Michigan. Approval of replacement of county clerk workstations by Interface Interiors in the amount of $16,395.87, with funds to be taken from the Capital Replacement Fund. Approval to replace a vacant full-time kennel worker position for a second full-time animal shelter technician position, with funds to be transferred from the Animal Shelter Donation Fund to the General Fund for the additional cost in budget year 2022. approval of recommendation by the Berry County Commission on Aging Board to hire Courtney Zinni as the Commissioner on Aging Executive Director as recommended by the Commission on Aging Board. This is a consent agenda, so there is no discussion. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll?
Campbell.
Aye.
Geiger is absent. Getty.
Aye.
Gibson.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Smelker.
Aye.
Connor.
Aye. Consent items pass. Thank you. Allison Wiswell, good morning. You.
Good, how are you?
Good.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you so much for allowing us the opportunity to come before you and to speak a little bit about where we are in the process of the Community Food Center. I want to make clear that we are presenting on things that are already been done and completed. These are not things that we are using the ARPA money for. We're not quite there yet, but wanted to take the opportunity today to inform Commissioners about where we are in the process and what the research shows us to date. So I brought with me Andrea Carbine. She is our project manager from New Venture Advisors, and she's going to be sharing with you a brief overview. You have detailed information in your packets, but just a few minutes of your time to show you and take questions.
Okay, thank you.
That being said, there's Andrea. Thank you. Good morning. How is everyone this morning?
Good morning.
I believe we have just a couple of slides. There we go. Perfect. So just to reintroduce myself, my name is Andrea Carbine. I work with a group called New Venture Advisors. We're a food system and food infrastructure development consulting firm. We are a national firm that works on projects of all sizes across the country. Predominantly, my background and area of expertise is in culinary development. So I work with food centers like the one proposed for this community, shared infrastructure, food hubs, agricultural facilities, shared kitchens, multiple different facilities. I have 25 years of experience in the culinary industry in designing, operating, and helping to ensure these type of facilities move forward with the best interest of the community-driven enterprises that help found their foundation. So just to give you a little bit of background, we can flip to that first slide. This has been a project that has had two groups of your own community members guiding through the process and helping us to engage across the work stream. In the first phase, we conducted a full feasibility study of the project. The idea here was to really get community input from the various stakeholder groups, organizations that work around food access, around agriculture. Sorry. It's okay. And other systems within the community in order to get their inputs into what could potentially be beneficial to the larger project. We conducted some financial feasibility. We created a concept model and a visual architectural design around that model and helped to identify how the advisory could help to steer the operation of this once it was built and developed. Following that, we did some additional community engagement. We've reached out and held some, various pop-up events at the Berry County Fair, at the local food access pickup stations, and at various farmers markets around the different county areas in order to continue to collect that guidance from the community as to what would best serve some of the food access and various needs that this center could help to address. Following that, we, at the advice of the steering committee, we conducted a full retail and use analysis of the space. This helped us to really try and identify some consumer profiles. We knew that there were certain food access needs that various community members had, but we wanted to validate some of the retail assumptions around the financial model, be able to look at some potential funding and opportunities that might come from the commerce of the marketplace, and best understand how to guide forward the concept design of the facility. So all of that work has been completed. Coming up, once some additional site information is hopefully secured, that's the sort of the piece that the teams are working on right now, is to really investigate all of the potential options across the county and here in Hastings to find a site that might be a good fit for this within your community. once that site is identified, we can sort of finalize the structure of things that could go on that site. So finish out the design and development of the facility, fine tune the financial analysis to make sure it's a sustainable facility that can run and operate over time, and also then start some of the capital campaign and other aspects that we needed to finish off the project. So if we can jump to that next slide. Perfect. So this is the outline of the concept that the community input and then the team involved in the project helped to bring together. There's really 4 primary components of the facility. Commercial kitchen space. This could have aspects such as incubation kitchen space for small businesses that are starting to start up in their field around food, whether it's a food service concept like a caterer or a restaurant or a product development. And it would also potentially have some opportunity for various organizations that do meal prep, that do snack for schools, or do other food access components to have some combined space where they could store product and be able to produce some additional prepared meals down the line. The retail hall idea was to bring some more fresh food options into the community. These would be smaller spaces where startup businesses could sort of test out a concept before they commit to a full brick and mortar outside of the facility. Warehouse and logistics space really supports all the other functionality. You always need some cold storage and some warehousing and some classroom things. And then the last piece was a full-time home for the farmers market. So a year-round location where not only the farmers market, but potentially arts and other marketplaces could utilize the space in order to create some different commerce opportunities within the community. So we're gonna go to the last slide there.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're good.
Let's go backwards.
While he's pulling that up, it's just a couple of key insights that we learned from the retail analysis. So the retail analysis really had 2 goals. The first one was to validate some of the assumptions that were built into the financial modeling around the facility about consumer spending, local retail opportunities in the marketplace, and the leakage of retail potential into neighboring areas. When we talk about leakage, what it is in sort of a sales and retail analysis is the potential sort of snapshot of retail opportunity. It's the hard-earned dollars that are coming out of, Hastings and Berry County pockets that are being spent outside of the county on things like food service, on dining out at restaurants, on grocery or specialty food items. So we wanted to sort of understand, what is that path of dollars, what's being spent in Berry County and what's being spent outside of it. It also helps us to understand and create a little bit of a consumer profile based around an expanded study area. So you can see this little, when it comes up, we have a little map. We put Hastings right at the center of it, and we did some 4 concentric circles around it. We did a 5-minute drive time, a 10-minute, and then a 15 to 20-minute drive time to help us sort of look at the rings of commerce that kind of expand outwards. Some couple of things that were noticed. There is a mid-income and high-income consumer profile in the marketplace. So about 78.7% of income holders make somewhere between $35,000 and just under $100,000. What this does is it creates a retail base. So there is foundational assumption there to drive some of the financing revenue assumptions built around the retail hall and the use of the kitchen spaces. The second thing that was very interesting was that it showed that on average 60% of household budget spending for grocery and food service categories is leaking out of Berry County, meaning that about 60% of the dollars that folks are spending on things in specialty food, in dining out, in fast casual, which is a category that's getting more and more popular in food service, they're spending those dollars outside of Berry County in the surrounding counties and then some of the shoulder communities of some of the bigger urban areas. So those are potential dollars that we could bring back into the marketplace through some of the offerings at the Community Food Center. Finally, the analysis supports the retail gap. That's an important little number. So the retail gap represents the difference between retail potential, so the possible spend that folks might make on things like grocery and food service, and what they're actually spending. So that retail gap, when we sort of take that leakage into consideration, is somewhere around $83 million for Berry County as a whole. So that's a big number. It's across all the relevant food and grocery categories. But what it tells us is that there is an opportunity potential for new retail, for some food establishments, and for some grocery plug-ins and fresh food items within Berry County, and that there are dollars interested in being spent on those items by your citizens. All of this to say, it helps us to create some foundational assumptions around the community food center that says there are people interested in being able to shop in those spaces, being able to find some of those fresh food opportunities at the farmer's market or at various events. And there are opportunities to build out and develop new small businesses around food specifically. So that is sort of the highlights of some of the work that we've done so far. I'm more than happy to answer any questions that anyone has if I can, and otherwise, that's all I have.
Thank you. John?
Can you tell me approximately what the amount of money is in the 60% household spending on groceries? How much are we using that?
How much are you
outside of the county?
The 60% is out of the total spend. I could pull those numbers for you. I don't have them right in front of me on this slide, but it equates to about that 83 million. So if we take food service spending, dining spending, food and beverage, grocery spending across both specialty and traditional grocery stores, and then what they call specialty retail, which is when folks buy things like spices and other specialty items, all of that spending equates to about 83 million. And that's the 60% that's going outside of your county into other areas.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else?
Yeah.
Go ahead, David.
Like the report, very broad-based, lots of information, lots of just demographics that are good to see for all kinds of things involved in it. Can you capsulize what the plan is going forward?
Absolutely. So there's some really key steps that are still in front of the team as they take forward the community food center. Finding the site is going to be sort of the crucial next step. So the site helps to dictate a couple of key components. It creates some foundational partnerships with whoever the landlord and developer are going to be on that site, which helps to refine an understanding of who an operator might need to be to operate the facility, whether it's going to be a hired-in position, whether it's coming out of one of the partnership groups, etc. So finalizing the site and finalizing the operational role overseeing the facility will be sort of the first two steps. Following that, sort of the key things that need to happen are we would refine the operational model based on the context of that site. So make sure we have all the square footage is right, how the different pieces interact, how they generate revenue, and what those structures look like. And that would help us to update the financial P&L and break-even model that was built as the end of the feasibility study at the end of last year. So it's just updating those two documents, the operational model and the financial model, to be site-specific and with the core partners placed into it in terms of their roles. Following that, the sort of last pieces of it are to identify the build and development team and to finish a capital campaign for the full funding of the construction and the equipment that would be needed to open the facility.
Do you feel like that timeline is within a couple of years, 2-3 years?
It's really, the one hitch that we all know in construction right now is construction has some delays against it, and equipment timelines are running about a minimum of 10 months. So I would say if all of the site pieces were finalized tomorrow and they could set a build deadline, you're looking at a minimum of 12 to 18 months to get to day one. I would say, with the current atmosphere, with a little bit of construction delays and timing delays around equipment, that could get extended out to 2 years, but realistically it could happen on an aggressive timeline within that frame.
Okay, and you mentioned a revenue model. So this is a for-profit model that'll be self-sustaining, will not require government, this will be a private setup?
Well, these facilities can be designed with operational models that are fully for private enterprises. They could be public-private partnerships, or they could be operated by a nonprofit.
the goal of these facilities is always long-term sustainability. So to be able to operate at least at break even so that they're not requiring additional funding or grants over the course of time. So the idea of sizing the facility, of finding the right tenants and partners to take spaces within it, is to ensure that there are consistent revenue streams that can support its basic operations. The determination of who operates it, whether it's a private business or a nonprofit, usually will determine the profit margin that is designed on top of that break even. Nonprofits often run these specifically just to break even because they're focused on the service outreach that they're doing. You know, this one, for example, food service, growth, development of small businesses, food access, those were goals and aims that the community expressed were of interest. So a nonprofit might be a great fit to sort of oversee it. If it's a private entity that runs it, usually it's about a 10 to 15% profit margin that we see placed on top of that break even.
Okay. And have you built these in other counties or communities sized like Berry County?
Yes, so we did some case studies for the team as we finished out the feasibility study last year. We found 2 comparable ones that have been operating for more than, one was, I believe, operational for about 8 years, one is just over 10, that were, you know, communities of almost the exact same population density of Berry County that were, you know, semi-rural or non-urban communities, but still had adjacency to some city centers near them. So they were great marketplace comparables, and both of those were sustainable facilities currently.
Okay. And is there an issue with competition from local retailers, local supermarkets? How does that play into it in the big picture, I guess?
Yeah.
Is this playing to a lower income? I mean, how does this fit into the community?
I think it's serving a dual need. You know, I mean, one thing that we heard very, very clearly during the initial listening phases throughout feasibility and the community engagement following that is there's 2 sides to your community, right? There is a large, you know, 30 to 40% of your total population who fall within categories of needing some sort of supports or access points into healthier food options, you know, food options that could be supported by, you know, SNAP use or other double bucks programs that the state or county offer. The other side of your community are folks that do have some income streams that could help them to make choices and selections around what they're spending their dollars on. You know, in that retail analysis, we saw high interest in, you know, better fresh food options, better access to local produce or to local products produced within Berry County or the immediate surrounding counties. You know, these things don't seem to exist from the existing grocery base that you have or in some of the food service options that are immediately available. So what the center hopes to do is add to some options for both of those bases, to have some market options as well as some below market options so that folks from both categories would be able to supplement their food service choices as well as their grocery options. The idea that we heard very clearly was that this should not be built and designed to replace the retail that already exists in your vibrant downtown. So the idea here are much smaller retail footprints that might allow startup businesses to give a trial to an idea, to try it out for a year at a market rate that allows them to grow and develop the business idea, and then maybe potentially long-term move into a retail space in your downtown. So hopefully supplementing some missing pieces of your commerce opportunities without replacing or directly competing with the ones in place.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Anyone else? I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you know, well, we're talking dollars, but do you
Yes.
have a percentage of people that took this study from Berry County?
In terms of the original feasibility analysis, so
And do you know, based on the data that you did collect, what the percentage of the population is of the county that goes outside to get their items?
yes. So the very last question is the 60%. So that 60% are the portion that came through in the retail analysis, looking at Berry County residents specifically, who are using the spend dollars in the specific categories. So we're talking food service categories, how they're spending their dining out dollars and they're buying products for dining in. Those are the 60% of dollars that are going outside.
Okay.
Okay. In the retail analysis, we use a combination of USDA, of census data, of traditional ag data, and of private enterprise commercial diner data. So groups like Technomic and Windrift and those who, you know, do these consumer surveys to help us understand spend. Those were specific to the zip codes within the Berry County area, but they represent a pretty good, I would say at least an 80 to 90% snapshot of the county as a whole, and they are not commodified with data coming out of the major urban areas. For our feasibility analysis in terms of interviewing and doing surveys and doing outreach specifically with different population groups in your community, we talked with, I would say, a slice of organizations and individuals representing about 40% of your community as a whole. So those were more targeted conversations. For example, we would talk with representatives from food access organizations like the Community Council on Aging, and then they would help connect us with getting a survey out to the community that they serve in order to understand their service and their needs. Same thing with farmers. We would talk with some organizations that worked with farmers like MSU or the Farmers Market or the City of Hastings, who helps operate the Farmers Market, and then they would help us get the survey out to local producers who use their system.
Okay,
Okay,
all right.
great.
Thank you very much.
Of course. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Allison, for all your hard work, both of you. Thank you very much. Does anyone need a break? All right, well then let's move forward. Public hearings, we have none. Hang on just a second, I gotta pull those items out of my packet here. And it was the minutes. And that one. Okay. Items for consideration.
Madam Chair, I move for the transfers and disbursements, approval of claims in the amount of $95,436.68.
Support Jackson.
Thank you. So we have a motion by Smelker, seconded by Jackson for approval of claims in the amount of $95,436.68. Is there discussion? None? All right. Clerk Palmer, will you call the roll?
Geiger, absent. Getty.
Aye.
Gibson.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Smelker.
Aye.
Campbell.
Aye.
Connor.
Aye. Motion passes.
I move for the approval of 2023 through 2025 multi-year plan for Region 3B, Area on Aging, and Carewell Services Southwest.
Support Getty.
So the motion is to approval of the 2023-2025 multi-year plan for Region 3B Area Agency on Aging, doing business as Carewell Services Southwest. Discussion. First,
I have,
wait just a second. I'll have the commissioners have a discussion, and then there's, I know that Joel had asked also about this, and Brandon, so we'll take it get recognized, and then we will have discussion from the audience. Thank you.
I was hoping Stacy would be back here this week too, and I have about 3 questions that I would like to ask. I'd like to know approximately the revenue for the year. Have they already taken the DEI training?
Yeah,
John, is your mic on?
is your mic on?
Nope.
Okay,
There we go.
okay.
I'd like to know the revenue per year approximately. Have they, this is, the DEI training, I believe, is only for the Area on Aging agency to take. Have they already took it? And we already know that we aren't allowed to discriminate, so I would just have some questions for her.
Okay. To answer John's, I did he asked me this morning. I tried at 8:30 after the Board of Public Works meeting. I did try to call Stacy Wines and also her secretary, and I left voicemail messages. And I did check just before we started this, and I haven't gotten a call back yet from them. So we can, postpone this to another meeting, because those are questions that I think are viable. I sat on the Carewell Services Advisory Board, and I haven't sat on COA in about 3 or 4 years. But I think the training, and I'm saying this is my belief, that this is their plan of what they do at their organization and their staff, Carewell Services. I don't think it's something that they require of the COA, but I don't know that for sure. Like I said, I haven't sat on the COA board, and Ben sits on that board, and he's not here today. So there are some questions here that we can't answer, so. Anybody else have any discussion?
Vivian?
Any questions? Thank you, Catherine.
You sent an email and got a response clarifying the participation. Do you have, unfortunately, I meant to bring it with me and I didn't.
Paper copy?
Yeah, I thought her response was detailed and comprehensive, and maybe it would clear up some issues.
I have, I did print them. I'm a paper person, sorry.
The email, her email response, I think those, do you have those I think are the attachments? Yes.
I have the email. Would you like me to read it?
If you could.
Sure. First of all, my question to her, let me read what my question was to her first, and it didn't print. I only printed the top page, but basically it was just, could she give us a snapshot of what this DEI program is to Carewell Services and how it's utilized, because I thought we might have some questions. So, a DEI plan and initiatives is not just the LGBTQ community. It is for veterans, for those aging within racial and ethnic minority groups and immigrants and marginalized group. I have attached 2 documents to help you educate you. I appreciate your reaching out for clarification. This is crucial to have in place to work in partnership with communities we serve to achieve equity and meet everyone's needs as best as we can. As the MDHHS, Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, DEI plan says perfectly, and this is in quotes, the MDHHS DEI Council is focused on eliminating racial barriers to ensure that its supports and services are equitable based on the realization that people of color and other disadvantaged groups have significantly lower health outcomes than groups identified as white. There is so much evidence-based data to support this. You may refer people to the internet and have them do their research to support why this is so crucial. Thanks for reaching out. So that was basically her email to us, or to me, so.
Thank you.
And I did forward I got this yesterday afternoon or in the evening, and I did forward on. And the 2 attachments that she had attached were the state goal plans for their 3-year 2023-2025 program, which had 4 goals, and then the addresses the needs of aging people of color, LGBTQ+, and immigrant populations, which is a content of the plan, available trainings, facts and resources, which is bias against older African American, facts and resources, biases against immigrant elders, and bias against older LGBTQ. And basically their services are for older people, and they're not being discriminative, but it's the older, that's what their services are for. So it would be quite a while to sit and listen to me read this, I don't know, 10-page document, so. But, and I did some research of my own, and I reached out to Stacy just to make sure that we understood, but any questions, board? Other questions? Then I'm gonna open it up. I do think because of the interest in this, I do think that we need to get them back here to answer these questions for us. So, but we'll open it up to people that are here today that want to speak. Well, I know Joel asked first, so I'm gonna let Joel, then Larry. Gary. Did anybody over there raise their hand? Okay. Thank you, Joel.
Yes. I'll keep it short and sweet because I think I made myself abundantly clear last meeting. But long story short, it's from the way that I view this DEI training and so forth, it is a new form of segregation. You can see it implemented in the West Coast, and what they are doing is they are actually relaxing requirements in certain demographic areas that affect minorities in such a way that they're setting them up for failure. For example, Seattle Public School System, through their DEI training, they made it so that certain schools in the districts have made it so that basically you only need a 4th grade education in order to get a high school diploma. They're setting those kids up for failure. They're giving them a certification of success and saying, you're good, go out in the world and go do your thing. And really what we're doing is we're setting them up for failure. Additionally, you see this especially when it comes to the LGBTQ movements, where they are pushing these rights to the point where they want to give women's rights to everyone, including men. And the reason why I'm going to fight so hard against that is because it no longer becomes something for me just protecting my neighbor, but for me protecting my own family. They are, for example, guys want to call themselves a girl and they go run against in the women's sports, and they can effortlessly just dominate entire sports because we are different. It doesn't matter what anyone says. When you look at the actual science, not the ideology, I am different from my wife, and boy, am I glad that I am. But when it comes down to that, we need to understand these differences, and we need to, I'm going off on a rabbit trail. But long story short, we're pushing equality and changing it into equity. I don't want equity. I want equal opportunity, which is something that we are promised. I want my daughter and my son to have the same opportunity as everyone else in this world. And I know that we've had some dark stains on our past, and I'm working on what I can do to educate everyone on those issues. But we cannot bring this into our county. It's encroaching on us one department at a time. We need to stop it right now, and we need to make sure that all kids have the same equal opportunity to do what they want to do. Thanks.
Thank you, Joel. Larry, you want me to go on to Gary, or do you want to speak?
I can at first blush.
Can you come up to the microphone so that people that are watching can hear you? Just pretend it's the golf tee.
Okay, that's different. At first thought, it's just a blush. It's another form of indoctrination. However, the documentation you just referenced, the letter, that's public knowledge now, right?
I sent it to the commissioners, yes.
Okay, I would like to get a copy of that so I can research it a little bit more. But like I said, at first blush, this is just another form of indoctrination that's, been sweeping our nation. So initially, I would say no, don't do it. But if I get a copy of that, I'd appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you. Gary?
Gary White, Nashville. Pledge says one nation under God, indivisible. Is this a policy that's trying to divide this community? What are you as elected officials going to do about it? Federal government is Biden administration, state government, Whitmer administration. And do they have agendas to divide or to bring communities together? That's what you got to answer yourself to this one. If you're going to accept this, you need to accept it within the guidelines and training policies and hiring policies of Berry County. If you don't have those policies in place, then you accept it with current and future policy of Berry County. That gives you the opportunity to review any and get qualified people to review it. You know, as a driving instructor, I used to go up there and we were state mandated to have 4 hours of training every 2 years. Some of the training wasn't worth the money you had to pay for it. Other times you go and have trainings. I always went to the one that had full day trainings. They were actually the MITSIA conferences. I would pay for my people that worked underneath me, instructors, I would pay for their training. If they went to the conference, it cost me more, I would pay for that training. It was a better training. When they trained after on the online training and stuff, we'd review their training, and it seemed like our programs were always better in our driving school than the training that was put out there. So it's going to be incredibly important. I Googled DEI last night, and this one from 2014-16, Google spent $265 million to increase its diversity numbers, which has become even more well-known recently, you know. And guess what? It failed. It did not increase nothing. The only reason we knew this was because of a person that was fired from Google that shared that information. You really need to think about, are you going to accept advocacy groups that have targets of individuals, which came out in their proposals? Or are you going to keep working with a community and not have a division in the community? It's your responsibility as elected officials to represent all people and make sure there's nobody going to come in here and tear this community apart. So I guess that'd be what I'd have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Okay, Brandon? Okay. And then, Adam, oh.
Thank you.
Again. Let me get these names down. So it's Adam,
Beth.
and Mark. Is it Mark?
Mike.
No, Mike. Okay.
Thank you very
Sorry.
much. No, you're absolutely fine. So I appreciate, number one, you reading that letter, because again, it didn't get to the root issue of, is this completely tied to Meals on Wheels? Are we going to lose our Meals on Wheels funding if we adopt this plan? And again, what we heard, and which is what I'd stated, is on page 17 of that slideshow, these are ultimately tied to the goals that the state has. So we've not done something based on what our needs are in this area, Calhoun County, Berry County. We've done it based on what the needs of the state are. And the state said, oh, you have to do this. Again, Forbes magazine several years ago did an article and a study on DEI training. You know what they found? 100% of DEI trainings failed. 100%. They all failed. It didn't change anything. So again, I just ask that as you consider this, or you look to move this on, or again, seek more information, which I think is wise, and again, something you've all said, definitely look at it with a microscope, not a telescope, please. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Adam Heichel, a local business owner. The first diversity, inclusion, and equity training I went to was back in 2015 at the Kellogg Foundation in Battle Creek. And it was a weird experience. All of us community leaders that left that training, we thought it was weird because we were told about equity. Not once did he talk about equality. It was about equity, because equity is that end goal. That's why I always say it in that format: diversity, inclusion, and equity. Because their end goal is then to have an equal outcome. so that they can have on paper and show people, look at what we did. We achieved something. We now have minority groups in leadership positions, and they've never been before. And they say that this is a good thing to have because diversity, diversity, diversity. And in doing this, in doing these quotas that they are doing now across the nation for departments, we no longer have the best, the brightest in positions. We now have people in positions simply because of the color of their skin or their heritage, the way they look, or their sexual orientation, or their gender. Things that are not factors in the workplace for getting things done and being efficient. Because diversity, inclusion, and equity trainings are divisive trainings. Like was just mentioned, they are 100% ineffective for the goals that they claim that they're after. They are actually complete opposite in their function because it forces people to then think along tribal boundaries and form groups where they can be weak because they're part of a group that's strong, where America was founded on strong individuals that could take care of themselves if they needed to. They came here because that's what they wanted to do, was take care of themselves. And all of the diversity, inclusion, and equity training is taking us backwards. It really is. Thank you.
Thank you. Bethany.
Okay, Bethany Matthews from Carlton Township. I did some research too myself and concluded kind of what Adam said is it creates an environment where you have to consistently ask yourself, am I the oppressor or am I oppressed? And it does cause division because businesses start looking at their employees in these two groups and they start training one to accommodate the other instead of really bringing them together. But diversity, equity, and inclusion in themselves sound innocent enough, but when these three words are combined to form a policy of employment or institutional conduct today, they carry a meaning far beyond their individual meanings. Together, they express an ideological agenda intended to produce equalized outcomes among all demographic groups, to include preferred people and deny those out of favor with the political elite, to take power from one group and give it to others. Whenever such policies are put in place, especially if mandatory, they may produce additional consequences such as group intimidation, an oppressive workplace environment, and the stifling of free expression. In addition, time and time again, it's shown that the success of DEI is hard to measure, and I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mike Marlowe?
Mike Marlowe, Hope Township. I think this whole thing was hatched. It's part of a plan, and it's not a good plan for Americans. It's a plan that perpetuates a tearing apart of Americans. Now, we have some time-tested documents that have served themselves quite well for a long time, 260 years, one of them, which is the Bill of Rights and the Constitution, and then there's this other one that's been around for a long time, and it's called the Ten Commandments. And I think instead of adopting some leftist Marxist thing to tear us apart like this diversity thing, and I think there needs to be a revisitation of these documents that have been around for a long time. And I remember back in 1971 sitting in a class, my white and black brothers, and it was a diversity class. And the sergeant that was given that class, he wasn't too awful hip on it because he understood that we all had an appreciation for one another and covering each other's back. And I think in 2007 and 2008, running up to the presidential election, there was a certain man that was promoting the fundamentally changing of America. And I don't think the question was really asked of him too awful much by anybody. What do you mean by that? Well, for a long time, many decades, there has been these entities in our country that are trying to promote our decline. And there's too many people been just trying to manage that decline, and I think we ought to recognize what's really going on here. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. All right, last two. You need a break? Do you need a break? Do you need a break? Eldon? And then
Michelle?
Michelle. Did I hear someone else say "and me"? Okay, that's it. Okay, anybody else? Okay, go ahead, Eldon.
I think we ought to remember the words of Dr. Martin Luther King. And the words from him was, not the color of his skin or any ethnic group or anything, but the intent of a person's heart. And I think we ought to remember those words from Dr. Martin Luther King.
Hi, Michelle Peltier, Hastings City. And I think in the appreciation of diversity, I'm up here to speak in support of the diversity training. Throughout my career and different things that I do and volunteering in different things, we are taught to accept all comers and appreciate them and also promote, employ, service them, not based on any gender or anything else, but on their abilities and what we can do to enhance their abilities. To not understand that we need to have diversity training is in self exclusionary. If we think that we are so perfect that we don't understand that there are other people with other abilities and different perspectives, we should learn to do that. We should learn to understand that other people have different perspectives. They need to be included in things. We should not exclude them. We should not say that we need to rely on something that was written 200 years ago, but we should look at our society today and include them. Berry County needs to attract people here, and to be exclusionary and to deny any kind of diversity training would be just that. And this program here is directed towards supporting seniors. It is not for the children here. This program, as you outlined, is to help train the seniors for them to be diverse, equality, and inclusionary. Simply put, we need to consider all aspects, not just one side, and to appreciate different perspectives. I've only heard one perspective here today. Hopefully we can look at everything and include everyone in any decisions and look at how we want to grow Berry County. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Charles. Oh.
I'm already up.
Rick Moore, Harbor Master of the Podunk Lake Yacht Club. I just wish to say, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. When you start denying certain people of their individual rights, then what you're doing is promoting segregation. And I've experienced that. Back in the 60s, I was refused service in several stores for having long hair. The Creator decided that my hair should grow long. For society to decide otherwise is stepping out of their jurisdiction. The same with a person who's born with a permanent tan. They're lucky. I have to work to go outdoors all the time to get a tan, and then it fades away over the winter time. It's all fails. Diversity training is important. We need to realize that there's only, 1% of Berry County are black, and the article in the banner, it was very eye-opening. I knew there is several black families in town, but they almost hide from people. When I say good afternoon and pleased to see you and open the door for a black person, they're shocked. And they shouldn't be, because the Creator made us all. Eldon was right in that regard. The Creator made us all work together. So I certainly appreciate the opportunity to speak.
Okay.
Gary's pointing at me. I'm looking at the clock, and I guess I used up my time.
Oh, I didn't
Thank
even
you very
start
much.
it. It's not public comment, so I didn't even start it. I just trusting everybody. Charles, I think you're last.
I get to bring up the rear. Okay, Charles Hertzler from the city of Hastings. I want to speak on personal experience for my part. When I was a maintenance manager for a major global plastics industry company, I was responsible for anywhere from 9 to 12 guys in our maintenance department. And I had to go through this diversity training and stuff to be able to work with the people. And I know that a couple of my guys that I felt deserved a promotion, I couldn't get because I had to go by minorities first. And that was put forward by the company mandate, a global company. I'll even tell you the name, it was Key Plastics. So I didn't like that. I also didn't like the fact that if they were drug addicts and if they would come high to work, I couldn't reprimand them. We had to turn them over to HR, and they would put them through training and through rehab to try to get them off the drugs. And when it didn't work and they come back to work, you still couldn't fire them. I had to let them work with other people, whether it's drugs, alcohol, whatever. We cater to the people who have problems by their choice, not mine. Okay? And I just know for a fact that you can't find one person in Berry County that did not come from between the legs of a woman. That's the difference between women and men. This whole thing about pregnant men, the commercial Calvin Klein has with the pregnant man being, but it's a bunch of baloney, and you know it as well as I do. You're a woman. Would you let your husband have a kid? If they can, I mean, they don't even have the parts to do it. It's all baloney. So I just think that there's just so much the diversity that causes more diversity, more segregation, and more anger against people who work hard for something and they can't get it because you got to give it to somebody else by the rule of the company or the rule of the law. It's not fair. Thank you.
All right.
I have a hat on. Sharon Zabrowski, Carlton Township, and I sit on the Commission on Aging Board. What I've heard today, I don't think has anything to do with the issue. This is Care Well Services plan. That's not the Berry County Commission on Aging plan. It's their plan. And if I understood her right, when she gave the presentation, she said, it's good if you approve it, not we have to do it, but you approve it or don't approve it. It makes no difference. That's still their plan. I've been on the board for several years. Carewell Services has never forced Commission on Aging to do anything Commission on Aging didn't feel was right for Berry County. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. I know this is unprecedented, but it's been 30 minutes since I asked anybody if they need a break, so I think we're going to take a break and then we'll come back and resolve what we're going to do with this issue. If that's all right with everybody?
Sure.
Okay, so we'll be back here 5 minutes. turn your mic back on? We'll call the session back to order. Board, what do you want to do with this item?
I personally would like to see it postponed for now.
For now? Do you want to,
I'm the one that made the motion on the,
on pulling it off
for
and
consideration.
putting it under items for consideration?
I supported it, and I think that we can move forward. It's not something that affects Berry County policy, as Sharon Zembrowski pointed out. This was an informational item that she was presenting to us, and I think we've spent too much time on it already.
Go ahead,
Dave.
I think Sharon probably made some of the best comments, is that they are not putting mandatory training on COA. COA, and my experience with them, has a very good board, and they will follow the procedures as need be that fits our population and the people that we serve in the county. So this is a Carewell Services, and if you remember her presentation, the proposal is here. It was a presentation, but it wasn't necessarily that we could approve it. We could do nothing and just listen to the presentation. You know, I guess we have the option to disapprove it, but in the end, what we do with it makes no difference. That it's their policies and procedures. It is not a reflection on Berry County and what we're going to do here individually. So, and the other thing is though although I agree with some of the input, not all of it, but some of it was well thought out and well presented, that I mean, I align with some of that thinking and some of the things that are leaching in, but by the same token, we don't have the option in this seat to be exclusionary to tell people, you know, that we're going to eliminate this group. So 99% of the presentation fits the needs of older seniors, and we're really having this discussion over the 1% that we don't like. So, and like I said, in the end, it's not going to change. We're not going to change Carewell Services plan. So I'm fine with postponing it. I'm also fine with voting it, you know, and moving on. So we spent a lot of time on this. So
Bruce?
wow, sorry for not being closer to the mic.
My position on this is in no way intended to mean that I am not in favor of this DEI being included in there, because I am. I think there was a lot of good statements. I think it would have been much easier to move on with this if we would have had Stacy here today. That's what's in my heart. And if time is not of an essence, if it's not a critical, I would like to see it wait and go through in 2 weeks.
I would have to agree with Dave that that is Carewell's service agreement. We're not going to change it. So what would be the point to not approve it or disapprove it and do it today? I see no sense in delaying it, because what's going to change? Tell me what would change. Anybody tell me. Nothing's going to change by delaying it.
Like I said, Hoot and I have both sat on the advisory board for Carewell Services. Did you sit on the policy?
I was on there for 12 years.
And this is their program. That is, when they talk about the training, it isn't something that they come into the COA, as Sharon and I have both said. It is their policy that they write of what they are going to do at their organization. I have had a phone call. I just turned my phone on when I got back, and I do see that I've had a phone call from Battle Creek. I haven't had a chance to check it or anything, but I do agree, we don't have to approve this policy if we do nothing. they continue to do their work. They continue to support our older folks, our elders' needs in the community. That's their job, and they do it well. So, and that won't change. I mean, if we do nothing, nothing changes. So, and again, yes, if we bring Stacy back, we'll probably have this same, but it still remains, the question is, are we gonna move forward? Are we gonna approve this? Are we gonna pull it and do nothing? What are we gonna do? The motion is, I'll read the motion again. To recommend, this is the agenda, is approval of the 2023-25 multi-year plan for Region 3B Area Agency on Aging, doing business as Carewell Services Southwest. That is the action that we're looking to do. And if we do nothing with this, Carewell Services will continue to do their good works that they do, and we don't have to do anything, because it's, they're already, their plan has already been sent into the state.
There's a motion on the floor, we better vote on it.
Do you want to vote on it? Approving it?
Call for the
Was
question.
there a second on John's motion?
No, I mean, that's the motion. He just asked to move it into items for consideration. That's
Okay.
all John asked for.
Okay.
So that's the motion on the floor. Madam Clerk, will you call, I've read it, does anybody need me to read it again? Okay?
Aye.
Gibson?
Aye.
Jackson?
Aye.
Smucker?
No.
Campbell?
Aye.
Tiger is absent. No. Motion passes 4-2. Moving forward.
Yeah.
Wait, I want to apologize. Well, we can't talk about that now that it's passed. Gary, I did see your hand, and I apologize. In the discussion, I didn't call on you, so.
Well, who asked anybody to give them an answer, but it's too late now because it's.
Yes, because it's already been voted on, and I apologize.
Not sure what was voted on though, to be honest with you, to move it to or to approve.
Approve.
To approve.
Okay.
I move for approval of July 19th, 2022 Committee of the Whole meeting minutes.
Second, Gibson.
Thank you. So motion by Smelker, seconded by Gibson, to approve the minutes of July 19th, 2022. Are you the one that pulled this from the, thank you. Thank you, Joel.
Yes, just keep it real quick. Under the public comment where it mentions me in the second section of public comment, it says that I stated that we should preserve its inverse. I did not say that. You could summarize it, we seem determined to preserve its inverse. What it says is opposite of what was recorded
But
as
we should be able to preserve its inverse?
Yes, and said if we could reflect that to say, we seem determined to preserve its inverse.
We seem determined
Yes. That is all, thank you.
to preserve its inverse?
Yes.
Okay.
Can we do this as amended then?
Yes. I'm sorry, John. John asked if we needed to approve this as amended.
Do we?
Is there-
Can I change the motion to approval of the Committee of the Whole meeting minutes as amended?
Sure.
Or, gotta get the date right. July 19th, 2022.
Okay, so the amendment is to approve the
Amended.
amendment. And then to approve, then we'll go back to approve the minutes.
Support, Getty.
So, motion by Smelker, seconded by Getty, to make the amendment to approve the minutes of July 19th as amended. So we're just approving the fact that we're going to amend the minutes.
Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes. So now the actual approval will be to approve the minutes of July 19th
Do I need to read it again?
as amended. No?
Amended. Okay.
No. Madam Clerk, do we call the roll?
Gibson.
Sorry, Madam Clerk, will you call the roll?
Gibson.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Smelker.
Aye.
Campbell.
Aye.
Geiger absent. Getty. Aye. Connor.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you. Sorry, I backed up to talk to Pam, and I should have came back up to the microphone. I apologize for that. Okay, moving on. Unfinished business, we have none. New business, we have none. County Administrator's Report. Luella, do you have something? Thank you. Commissioners Report. Chairperson's Report. I'm good. This is my busy week. Last night I attended a Board of Planning Commission meeting, and we approved a accessory dwelling for a family in Berry Township. And this morning we had the Board of Public Works, and we had a good report from the contractor for the Middleville wastewater treatment plant, and they're getting close. They're still waiting on a part that should have been here in April, and it's the brains to run the facility, but they are going to do a temporary fix so that they can get the new units running, drain the old ones, get them fixed, install new, but they're moving along and everything's looking good, so. And that's all that I have. David?
Light Month, Economic Development Alliance did not have a meeting. The Governance Board for the EDA did not have a meeting. Brownfield didn't have a meeting. The Animal Shelter did have a meeting. They were certainly excited about the fact of having Ken's replacement come in and training for that. They are also planning an open house for this fall at some point with a date to be named, so I'll give you details on that as it becomes available. Thank you.
Thank you. Bruce?
Thank you. I attended the Johnstown Township meeting, working on projects requiring special assessments, Clear Lake weed control, and the possibility of a sewer for Mill Lake residents were some of the subjects discussed. Also attended the BEHD meeting on the 15th. Some topics discussed was an update on the monkeypox virus, which is starting to make the news. A draft of the 2023 budget along with staffing plan and fee schedules. There was a staff vehicle update presented along with a breakdown of funding of the BEHD, which I found to be very interesting. The Delton Founders Day celebration will take place on August 12th and 14th. That's Commissioner Jackson's area. And I'll be giving horse rides from 11 to 4 o'clock. Please come down and join us.
Are the horses getting rides or the people? Never mind.
Did you say August, what was it?
12th through the 14th. I'll actually be doing the rides on the 13th.
Okay. Catherine?
I have no report.
Thank you. John?
Attended the Berry County Community Mental Health Board meeting. Also, the Berry County Transit Board meeting. I'll let he's the chair, I'll let him go on that. And 911 meeting. And so far this year, year-to-date incidents dispatched was 25,875.
Wow.
And that's not the total number of calls, that's just the ones dispatched. So, that's all I got.
Thank you.
I attended the transit board meeting. We have 2 people retiring. We think we've found 1 applicant. I spent 4 days volunteering at the fair this week. I was at the ribbon cutting at the Berry County Lumber. My next meeting is at 12:30 with the Community Corrections Advisory Board today. The Freeport Car Show's this weekend. The fire department will be doing a pancake breakfast from 8 to 11. So you're all invited to Freeport, Michigan. That's all I have
8 to 11 at the fire barn?
at the fire barn.
Thank you. I'm sorry, fire station.
Also, the museum is open from
Noon to 3.
noon to 3. Free admission at the museum from noon till 3 in Freeport, Michigan.
Okay. Limited public comment. Get my little timer back up here. Yes.
Thank you, Mike Snyder Hastings. Thank you for allowing me to come up and say something. This meeting has been mostly on the lower income people. And my question is, right now, we have a company that moved out of Hastings because it could not find talent and it could not find housing. It's a big corporation. They went to Grand Rapids and built a new plant where they had the facilities up here, which they're building ammunition equipment, which is done for years, but that's all gone. Why? Because they couldn't find the talent. But did they go outside and find talent, but they came in here, but they couldn't find any housing? Are we missing something? Are we not going to support the middle class, the middle income people? Are we going to concentrate on the lower class? What's the county doing in this regards? We do need a housing for these people. And it's not only a county, but it's a city and a village problem. I think the village and the city and the township and the county should all be working together, trying to get the middle income people in here. They're the ones that bring the money into the county for us. And that's what we definitely need. And we have lost that. This is why I left years ago, because they didn't have the industry here to support. I went on to Chicago and went on to Cleveland and Dayton, and I fought my way through what I've done. And it's people, it's not the diversity. Diversity is if you go out and work for yourself and try to fight to get your own, make your living, so forth. It's not when people give you money and do this. This doesn't do any good. This is what I think is happening in our community today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Michelle Peltier. Today was an interesting meeting, but I do have one question, if it's possible. I think it was about 4 months ago you approved the ARPA plans, and I wonder if it was possible to have short updates on those plans to see where they've progressed, and not to make it a full-blown work effort to do a complete report, but just a status update by those plans on where they stand. Because I believe you've delayed the release of the second ARPA monies to try and see how the first plans were moving along and if there were any pitfalls and lessons learned. And it would be nice to hear a status of the plans. That's one thing. The second thing is, I think it's wonderful that Courtney Zinni is going to be head of the COA. I was fortunate enough to be able to volunteer for her last year, and she's intelligent, inspiring, innovative, inclusionary, and serviced all that came to her, and she was great to work for, and I was just a volunteer. So I'm sure that anybody that works for her will be extremely happy, and she'll service everybody. Wonderful. I don't know if she's still here, but I think it's great that that was approved by the Commission on Aging and by the commissioners. Thank you.
Hang on. Okay.
Joel Ibbotson, Rutland Township. USA Today, another attack on Asians, penalty for hard work and school admissions. NBC News, federal judge rules new admissions policies at elite schools discriminate against Asians. Wall Street Journal, are colleges discriminating against Asian applicants? Department of Justice, Justice Department finds Yale illegally discriminated against Asian Americans in undergrad admissions. This is where diversion, equity, and inclusion leads to. It's just another form of segregation. When we say the Pledge of Allegiance, what part of liberty and justice for all doesn't apply to Asians just because they test higher? That doesn't make sense to me. It's another form of racism. It's another form of segregation. It's another form of a perverted agenda that, as I said, keeps creeping into us one department at a time, and I won't stand for it. Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Smelker, for voting no. Oh, and Vivian, sorry.
All right. Who's next?
Just one thing. I did talk to Rick during the break, but your rules by state laws, as the public gets to address the board, your rules say the public addresses the chairman. You got to stop letting people address the public as they please. As I said, the reason I pointed when Rick was, he kept looking at the people over in this direction. He said he looked at both, but I'm just sitting there. So it's important that they address the board. The board should be listening. I'm not sure the board listened when, as I said, when Hoot said, anybody have an answer, you know, or the answer would have been just to ignore it, not approve it, because it doesn't work for Berry County. And that's your responsibility as elected officials, Berry County, is to make sure that you present plans that work for Berry County. So, as I said, for the ones that voted yes, it's sort of disappointing. For the ones that voted no, thank you. As I said, because I don't think the DEI training really works. If you treat people like people, which they are, you get the best out of everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Eldon Schellenbarger. If this was brought to the board and they were going to approve it anyway, I don't even understand why it's on the agenda. I mean, they've already got their stuff set up and what they're doing. Really, it's no consequences for this board to approve or disapprove because they're going to go ahead and do it anyway. So why even discuss it if they're going to do what they're going to do? And by the way, I'd like to thank the 2 no voters as well.
Thank you.
Hello, Charles Hertzler, Hastings City. I just wanted to point out that listening to the comments and stuff today, I several times heard some people say E for equity and E for equality. And the E actually stands for equity, not equality. And that's a major difference. I just thought maybe that should be brought to people's attention so that they can research it and understand the difference between equality and equity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Adam Heikkila, local business owner again. I do want to commend you all as a board, though. Like I said, I go to a lot of different board meetings in a lot of different places, and I do say the same things to a lot of boards because there is this disconnect between our communities and our local boards. But you as a board have do a lot of things better than other boards. You do allow these communications, the proper communication before a vote, and allowing some participation from the public at those times. That's really big. It really is. So I do commend you for these things. So I want you all to know for sure that I'm not here to just, hammer on you in some way, right? I'm truly here to try to help things to become better for you as a board and for really our community. I believe that we will have more community participation if the people that come here truly see that you all are doing more and more of those things to be a representative instead of that ruling political force over us. I just do want to reiterate again with this DIE stuff. This equity, that training in 2015 when I left, it was such a weird thing for all of us to sit there and try to understand why were they talking about this equity. It was really awkward at that time. I mean, it's so commonplace for us now, because since that time, diversity, inclusion, equity, those words have been driven into our minds in so many places because it is every single department. It's one little department at a time, one group at a time. Battle Creek Police Department received over $400,000 from the Kellogg Foundation to do their diversity, inclusion, equity training. So when I say that these things that have been creeping in to our local communities and controlling us, this is what I'm talking about. This is, Kellogg Foundation right down the road from us has been one of the major players in changing our mindset from being free, strong individuals to then this mindset of equity, diversity, and inclusion with all the subgroups, because we're really just weak and we need their subgroup to really take care of us. They're the ones that have driven it across the nation with their funding, because they control it in funding, just like they did with the Battle Creek Police Department, $400,000. You think a group's going to turn down $400,000? You think really all of that goes directly to training? Well, it does, because actually every diversity officer I've ever met makes at least $100,000 a year, right? 90 to 200,000. I think it's pretty mind-blowing. It's big business, you guys. It's big business when it comes to authoritarian control. Remember that.
Thank you. Sorry, trying to get this thing to work. Mark?
Morning, Mark Bonsignor, Berry Township. I would just like to remind the board, the chairman of the board, anybody else who's listening, that the same arguments and sentiments that were expressed by a certain side of the room are the same arguments and sentiments that were used to keep women in their place for many hundreds of years. If you want to listen to them, think about that. Think about the fact that they're arguing against diversity, which I guess is monolithic conformity. They're arguing against equity, which I guess is unfairness. And they're arguing against inclusion, the opposite of which is exclusion. So just please think about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing no one else, limited public comment. Commissioners' comments. Catherine.
I just want to thank the Thornapple Township Emergency Services retiring Chief Randy Eaton. He served his last day, I believe, yesterday, and our new chief started, I think, a week and a half or so ago. So thanks to Randy, he served as a volunteer fireman and took over the reins as chief a few years ago, and he has served our community very, very well, and we look forward to our new chief.
Thank you. Is that all? John?
I just want to make one thing clear. I got thanks for a no vote, but my preference would have been to postpone. And I had some questions for Stacy. And if I'd have got the correct answers, so don't congratulate me on anything until you know the whole fact. Thank you.
Do you want me to follow up with her still on those questions?
No,
All right. Okay.
I'm good.
You're good?
To answer one of Michelle's questions about ARPA funding, I think that's a great idea to get some updates. We're still very early in the process with a lot of this. I know because I'm working closely with Berry Township on their water tower, it is on budget as scheduled, and they're having delays with materials and logistics. So they don't see that probably taking place. They said 12 to 18 months, but it is on time, on target, on budget. So we're still monitoring the process to see just what's going on with that. But we'll talk to the other recipients as well and get some updates. So good question.
Agree with Dave on that. I'd like to hear some updates on our ARPA progress and where it went and how they're doing.
Okay, thank you. Sure.
Sorry.
It's all right.
But as far as an update on the 911 tower, I forgot that. We are securing property for the tower. It looks like it is pretty well secured, and I've got the confirmation from Motorola that we're going to move ahead and lay out the county for where other towers should go, and hopefully there will be other good news in the future.
Thank you. That's good news. I have on the shooting range, I haven't heard back from the DNR, Randy Heinze yet. Have you, Catherine?
No, he didn't respond.
And it's only just been 2 weeks, so anything can happen in 2 weeks. Somebody can go on a vacation, but I will follow up and send another email this afternoon. And then if not, I'll stop by the office. It's on my way home. So not today, I won't, but I will stop at the office and see if I can catch him there. It is a small office, and there's much work to do for that size of a game area, and just a few hands to do it. So other than that, I'll check this phone call later this morning, and I will ask the questions that John asked, just because I want to just know how much money they give the COA, how much funding they get from them. But I will follow up on that. Yep, I'll do that, just because they were asked, and they're good questions. They were good questions, John. So other than that, I don't have anything. So with that other business, if there is no objection, we stand adjourned. Thank you. We are adjourned at 10:45.